Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. In the days leading up to the May 29 swearing-in of President Muhammadu Buhari for a second term in office, a number of his appointees have been raising an alarm about what they call the attempt by some Nigerians to undermine his administration. However, virtually all the allegations remain at best unsubstantiated and have not been backed with solid, verifiable evidence, at least in the public domain. To further explore the likely effect of these allegations on national integration efforts and political stability, we are now being joined by Akin Osuntokun, political strategist, scientist, researcher, administrator, journalist, and writer. Akin Osuntokun.
That's a mouthful.
Good to see you again. Medical fits in every respect.
Same here.
Yeah, so, I mean, what's your take on this, emotional scaremongering by Alhaji Lai Mohammed in particular, saying that some people are crossing the line and that they are trying to sabotage the Buhari administration and fingering, a former vice president and presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar in particular. What do you make of it?
Well, it's a dangerous, funny speculation. We all know that is not true. It's a bit of a stretch, to believe that Atiku Abubakar or anyone in present-day Nigeria, can go to the extent of wanting to organize a coup. So, look, first, the international community is so unreceptive to it. It's a non-starter. In any case, what capacity... Look, you see, the thing is, it's a sad commentary on... I hope that the minister is not doing it, in consultation with the government. I hope it's not an official pronouncement or belief, because it's a very ridiculous statement to begin with and dangerous. You see, the only way it makes sense or logical is to see it as a red herring on which you want to use it to achieve your own predetermined agenda, to frame people, for non-exist, for phantom, conspiracies and coups. That is the only logic it makes. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, just days ago, prior to this quite inflammatory accusation from the Minister of Information, you were at your hometown at a festival there, and you took the opportunity... We do our research. You took the opportunity to caution political office holders and people in authority to guard against, unguarded speech in public. What actually informed that statement that you made? What were you referring to?
Well, it's this kind of quite trivial, the people are trivializing governance, this unfounded, speculations and things. Well, generally, look, all of us, at our level, you have, Dr. Abati has occupied a high political public status in the country. With it comes obligations and responsibilities. That we should always bear in mind. So I see it also as my own obligation to look. Don't let us, we try as much as possible not to lose our head. And also, as I said, is a role fulfillment, at all times to say, wait, look, there are a lot of allegations going around, some of them very wild allegations, some unbelievably true. And, if we don't arrest the momentum, we'll all be the loser for it, The thing is that often, that this is what frightens me, that what do you think ordinarily that it is fanciful that this cannot be the case? Then you discover the following day or thereabouts that it is actually true. But at the same time, there are a lot of wild allegations going around and that found a suitable medium in the social media. So, there is a lot of cacophony and anarchy. We are getting here. Nigeria is trending towards anarchy. And of course, the government is leading the charge in that direction. But there are also, of course, people, maybe out of frustration, out of anger, out of despair. And there's a lot to be very angry with in Nigeria today.
But how do you mean that the government is leading the charge towards anarchy?
Well, you see, the last time you had the spokesman of the army saying some Nigerians want to attack. No, just this thing that you are talking about, that some people are planning, some people don't want Buhari to be inaugurated. Look, no, that makes sense to you. I mean, does it make sense to you? Who is going to organize a coup now? Look, it was similar. It's not even similar because that one there you could even find snippets of information. Well, like it's almost similar to accusing Awolowo of planning treasonable, wanting to overthrow the government. Who is going to overthrow? For what reason? For what purpose? How will Atiku benefit from a coup against Buhari? How?
But what then could be the motive? If it's so straightforward, if it's so obvious that these things are not possible.
I said so now.
Yes. What could be the motive?
It's framing. You want to frame people the way Obasanjo was framed for a phantom coup. That is the only logical explanation. And that's why I said that I hope this is just, off the cuff, trivial, scaremongering. Because if they want it to be taken seriously, the implication is that they are doing an elaborate conspiracy, on which they have a predetermined agenda and purpose. That is the aspect of it that we should take seriously. But as far as it being authentic, it's a silly, it doesn't look, it doesn't speak well of the government parading that kind of...
Anyway, let's go beyond that. I mean, you were actively involved in the 2019 general election, and, we've not had this opportunity to have a conversation over that. What's your assessment of that election, both in terms of performance of INEC and, the aftermath now? 776 petitions in 77 tribunals.
Well, I've tried as much as possible to avoid attending, especially, media platforms like this, and even in my column to comment directly on it because I was a partisan. I was actively partisan, but beyond that, of course, I hold the obligation also, as you have implied in my introduction. There's a sham, there was a debacle, and that I don't need to be a partisan to do that. But then you see, when you have things, you can then a misbehavior, a conspicuous lapse, or a conspicuous misbehavior, you can mitigate it by steps you take thereafter. Like, moving from there to show some seriousness about governance, to be responsive, to try and make up for the obvious lapse, but this government has not done anything in that regard. You just see, it seems as if, everybody, the government has lost control of the situation. And of course, look at the governor in Kano State. Look at what he has. After the brigandage of the supplementary election, the governor that should cover his head, eyes in shame, taking the trauma to which people, and then he went ahead to go and do what he did. Impunity upon impunity, building impunity upon impunity. This is where the real problem is. So instead of, it's like it's escalating. Once you start on a curve like this, you can't do a course reversal. And of course, he couldn't have done that without the consent of the president, because it poses serious security, is a concern. So you have a governor who was the epitome of personification of scandal, of all things wrong with governance in this country, going ahead to do what he did. And then again, subverting the rule of law in a way also that is, saying that a court gave a judgment, and then came out and said, look, I've already done it. before the government. So where does it stop? That is the issue. We have attained a dangerous momentum that ought to be arrested one way or the other. But
so
other
how do we arrest it? Because how do we de-escalate this kind of impunity you've referred to, the tensions that Dr. Abati started off by addressing, all these accusations and counter-accusations? Because you did cite two historical precedents that are quite disturbing, the Awolowo case and the Obasanjo case. How do we ensure that we don't see a repeat of these things?
Well, it's just that they don't have a good record in that respect. But the casual reference that the president makes to true federalism, if you are sincere and serious about what he said, that could be a way out, The truth is that Nigeria needs a shock therapy, a positive shock therapy, to shake this syndrome, the syndrome of anarchy, the syndrome of the syndrome of lack of national confidence, of things going wrong. You need to do so. You need to do it with an act, a symbolic, powerful act, that can get people going again. Restoration of federalism, can fulfill that, that role, can do that. So I hope he means it. Right? It's a bit, it's better late than never. but it can actually serve, that kind of, a course reversal that Nigeria, critically needs.
Well, the thing is, if you want to do federalism, then you'll be talking more or less about restructuring, dismantling the Nigerian state as it is, rescuing it from those who have captured it. But after the election, you wrote a piece about population, and you were asking a question about, the politics around population in Nigeria. How much of a threat does that pose to the polity, to the stability of Nigeria at this moment, and what do we do?
Well, the threat it poses is the fundamental challenge to development. Development is predicated on planning, and the efficacy of your development to a large extent depends on the accuracy of the statistics and data that we are using.
No, I raised that question in the context of the election itself. Population was an issue there. Kano, Borno, and all of that.
Yes. Look, whether we like it or not, you and I and many people, we are part of the elite conspiracy in the country. So the Nigerian population actually is a product and still remains, a product of national elite conspiracy and an element of ignorance. First, I know that logically, it is not possible. Nigerian population is not near what people claim it to be. Some people will find it surprising, but that is the truth. I have both empirical and theoretical experience of it. Empirical in the sense that if you are a politician or a community leader, you are often requested to come back home during enumeration exercises to contribute money to, quote and unquote, take care of the enumerators so that your figures, something can be increased or things like that. Because it is on the basis of those figures that allocation of resources are determined. The creation of wards and local governments, revenues distribution, and all sorts of things like that. But back to what you are saying about the implications for the election going forward. Now, the truth, the most alarming, thing in that respect is a pattern of the national election, where the president was elected by a segment of the country, right? Because a bogus population figure was attributed to them, to that, That is the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous. The presidential system of government, it is antithetical, to the projection, or the utility of a presidential. The reason why you have a national presidential system of government is really, as a matter of fact, for the president or whoever is going to be the president to have a national mandate, to be a national symbol, precisely to not be seen, to not be elected by a section of the country. Under the parliamentary system, the man who becomes the prime minister is only elected by a federal constituency. That federal constituency can be my constituency, in Ekiti. One of the constituencies, they can go to become prime minister thereafter. But the president is elected directly by the country. And what recommends it precisely is that you want the president to be a national symbol, not a sectional symbol. So that utility now has been subverted. But when you look at the frequency or the distribution of the national election, the president was elected lightly by Northwest and North Central.
But according to INEC, who declared him president of Nigeria for the second term, he was able to scale that very point, which is addressed in the Constitution, of 2/3 of the country. He won by a majority of 2/3, not just in the north.
Well, you see, that is the irreducible minimum. But that is legal. That is a legalistic argument. Okay, he has fulfilled the legal requirements. What about legitimacy? What about moral? What about, the patriarch? Fulfilling the legal criteria does not amount to you being does not amount to you fulfilling the letter and spirit of that law. I mean, you've done the least possible. In any case which is questionable, because of the way those results were bastardized and distorted. But, of course, the role of INEC and all that kind of... So the point still remains that you even made the point. So that is one of the indices. That is one of the instruments that point to the fact that you want your president to be a national symbol. That is the reason why that is there.
Yes.
That you have fulfilled the irreducible minimum is not good for the country. Right. You could have done better. I mean, instead of you just scoring 25, if in a situation in which we are talking about national integration, what did that election produce is antithetical to that aspiration. And again, then you have a president who often, whether wittingly or not wittingly, appeals to this kind of divisive tendencies, in the way he speaks, saying that people gave him 97%, going to some place that you want Nigeria to know that your brothers are still with you, those kind of the statements that he makes, Look at the appointments, look at what you have, almost any opportunity he has, to respond and mitigate this persistent, this persistent criticism of his government of being lopsided. He misses it or reinforces it. Look at the IG of police, for instance. That is an opportunity for you to pick somebody from else to, Look, if you are talking about loyalty, you can find somebody who is more from the south, from River State, who probably can be more loyal to you than somebody from Kano.
Or from Ekiti State.
Exactly. So it doesn't have to be, look at the situation we now find ourselves now. All the three organs of government in Nigeria are headed by the same group of people. I mean, that is after Saraki might left.
There was a point you raised earlier about the system of government. And, as part of the fallouts of this last election, some people are even arguing that perhaps we should drop this presidential system of government, and maybe opt for a parliamentary presidential system or even a parliamentary system. We had somebody on this program when, we were told that for accommodation alone, senators-elect and other legislators-elect will collect about 9 million or 10 million just for accommodation. And when you tabulate the other allowances that they will get, you'll be wondering, why do we have such an expensive National Assembly and all of that cost of governance Will you say that, the presidential system has outlived its usefulness? We should try something else?
Yes, of course. The thing is that, Nigeria observes good things in the breach rather than the rule. We have been visited with the dysfunctions of the presidential system rather than what the good functions is supposed to serve. So this is a problem that in anything that we have, we always manage to go to negativize it, to make it serve the example. Because there is a reason in the first instance for moving to the presidential system of government. The reason, of course, is what you started with, the national integration, that it is more conducive. But it does not serve that purpose. On the contrary, it has added more to the problems that we have. So, if we are going back to the parliamentary system, that was what we had in the first place. You're going back to the first principle. I always tell people that in terms of, the utility for the country, there is no constitution that comes near the independence constitution. And it is logical. Look, those who produce that constitution knew and know Nigeria more than any other set of Nigeria, namely the British government, which created Nigeria in the first place. Then the founding fathers, Awolowo, Azikiwe, and Ahmadu Bello, sat down for years, not months, to come up with this groundwork, with this foundational document, and came up. Look, there's no abstract, there's nothing. It is just simply logic. And every other thing has vindicated what they have, that product, in terms of its applicability and functionality for Nigeria. No other constitution. Look, and then you look at it. It wasn't even as if we agreed or came together in any place to say that this constitution is defective. Let us try something else. No. It was a coup. It was a violent disruption. It was an accident that stopped it. And then, there is this cliche that when you find yourself in a hole, you don't keep on digging. Which is, on the contrary, that is what we have been doing. We now stood on that violation, on that accident, and kept on digging. Now we are talking about true federalism and restructuring. In reality, those who restructured Nigeria were those who took it from 4 regions in 1966 to the 36 nominal states that we have now in the military. Now, there is any organization, any political, for you to function normally, there's always a reason. There's always a rationale, for things you want to do to develop society. How do these 36 states fulfill that? First, there's an emphasis on the politics of consumption rather than that of production. Almost all the states were created in order for them to get something from the center, not as a unit of development that is capable, of an element of autonomous development. One of the criteria of creating regions in the Constitution of 1960 is the ability for you, that you require the state to show that you can sustain yourself, that you have a large capacity to sustain yourself, so that you don't become... So right at the beginning...
But then the sharing formula was different.
But, that is all things taken together. It was a compact on which where you violate one aspect of it. Why did Ahmadu Bello remain, in the northern region? He was a leader of the party. Under the convention of the parliamentary system, the leader of the party becomes the leader of the government, prime minister. But because of the constitution, which is good for whoever wants to serve to develop society, you will do that better. He did that better by remaining in Kaduna and developing the northern region rather than coming to the center. And that was the essence of that's the federalism we are talking about, and which has been completely negated now. You now have the states as subordinates of the center rather than being coordinate or independent. You go as a state governor, you go to the center. These days, it's the extent of the bankruptcy of the system. Get bailout, all sorts of things. Now it is the accumulation of debts, right? When you go to Abuja to take money for your state, you have created a double jeopardy situation. First is that when you get your money from Abuja, subconsciously, you don't have a sense of responsibility to the citizens of that state. To reinforce what we are, that thinking of mentality, the citizens of that state, because the money is not from them, right, really do not care as such, of holding you to account. The American Revolution was fought on something, no taxation without representation, right? That if you tax, so if the money for funding the development of the state came from the people of the state, from their sweat, the governor will not be riding in a convoy of 7, 8, 15 cars.
Well, Osuntokun, I know we can spend a whole day on this subject because you're a political scientist. Yeah. But what are your expectations in terms of the likely outcome of the presidential election petition process at the tribunal? What are your expectations? What do you think is likely to happen?
Look,
dispassionately, not in terms of your own bias.
Well, yes, exactly. I wish I could, I mean, there is no realistically speaking, it's a pie in the moon, a pie in the sky. From the record of the government that we have now, I don't think, what was the rationale for removing the former Chief Justice? There is no government that would have gone to the extent of doing what they did to the Chief Justice, and then will sit down and allow a Supreme Court, right, to now deliver a judgment, no matter how correct it is, against its own. It has already preempted that. So you only need to look at what it has done. What was the purpose of getting the man out? If I would now allow myself to be removed by a tribunal or a Supreme Court, no matter the legitimacy or the validity of the argument. So it's a non-starter. It is a government that can even kidnap all these justices on the eve of the judgment. So you can't there's nothing you can put past. That is the truth.
Or you think the justices themselves will just be politically correct and not, disturb the...
There's a Yoruba saying that there's nobody who you will look at is see the nose and you will not smell shit. If I have
That's
a purpose,
very strong imagery on television.
If you have a purpose, no, it's just hypocrisy. There's nothing like that. I'm passing, it's part of human biological system, right? Look, if I want to nail you, right? There is nothing I can go. Maybe you had a clash with your boyfriend or something. If I keep on digging, you will get something. Whether it is you, your mom, your sister, or somebody. So and the government has that capacity to do so. That is if, of course, if you refuse to be compromised. The government has a large capacity, to thwart, or to manipulate. For me, of course, I hope that I'm not right. I always pray that, that there could be enough chance, that this is the case. But I doubt seriously, especially on the damage in my own thinking that was done to that government and to that election, and the capacity to seek redress was the disappointing haste and rage with which the international community colluded with the outcome of the election. They rushed to legitimize it. Even while scandals and outrages are being exposed left, right, and center, you saw these international governments and their own government rushing to do it. For me, that is singular, that is damage to the prospects of getting, redress or rectitude from that election. So because at the end of the day, the government, of course, is answerable to the international community, and they are in the best position to actually squeeze the government and, final result, to do the right thing. But if they have given you, I was shocked. I was shocked at what they did. In the face of so much conspicuous evidence, you know.
Well, thank you very much, Akin Osuntokun. Always a delight to have you on the morning show. And we've enjoyed this interaction with you this morning very much.
Thank you very much.
I hope you will come again when we invite you.
Oh, sure.
You know, that would be very kind of you.
Sure. But as if the government has not appointed me.
You are looking for a government appointment?